Captain Lisa Hawthorne stood on the bridge of her ship Star Whisper and looked at the scanner display with hungry eyes. The small human cargo vessel was drifting in space, sending out a distress signal that made her silver-pointed ears twitch with excitement. This was too easy, she thought, as she ran her pale fingers through her long white hair. The human ship looked old and beaten up compared to her sleek elven vessel that could slice through space faster than most ships could even detect. Her crew of elite elven warriors stood ready at their stations, while her trusted Lieutenant Maya Stardust checked the scanning results with her blue alien hands. Maya was a Zephyrian, and her people were known across the galaxy for reading minds and being very clever. Her blue skin had silver patterns that glowed when she used her mental powers. She looked up at Lisa with her large purple eyes and spoke in her musical voice. The human ship is carrying rare minerals from the outer colonies. Captain, the cargo hold shows massive amounts of titanium and rare earth metals that would make us rich for many years. Lisa smiled, showing her perfect white teeth. She had been raiding ships for over 2 centuries, and humans were always the easiest targets. They were considered a weak species by most of the galaxy. Their technology was basic, and their minds were simple compared to the advanced races like elves and Zephyrians. Set course to intercept. Lisa commanded her crew prepare a boarding party, but make it look diplomatic. I want to handle this personally. The Star Whisper moved through space, like a ghost approaching the human cargo hauler that called itself Prairie Wind. Lisa could see through the main screen that the human ship was much larger than it first appeared, but it still looked like a basic freight vessel with thick armor plating and simple weapon systems. As they got closer, Lisa prepared herself for another easy victory. She wore her finest silk robes that showed off her tall, elegant figure, and her skin seemed to glow with an inner light that most humans found impossible to resist. Her voice could make strong warriors weak, and her beauty had opened more doors than any weapon ever could. The human ship responded to their communication request, and Lisa saw the face of their captain on the screen. He was a man who looked to be in his middle years, with brown hair and steady gray eyes. His face was weathered like someone who had spent many years in space, but his expression was calm and alert. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Prairie Wind," he said in a deep, steady voice. "We appreciate your response to our distress call." Lisa put on her most charming smile and let her voice take on the magical quality that had never failed her before. "Captain Morrison, I am Captain Lisa Hawthorne of the Star Whisper. We received your signal and came to offer assistance. My crew and I would be honored to come aboard and help with whatever problems you might have." Jake looked at her for a moment, and Lisa expected to see the usual signs of humans falling under her spell. The glazed look in their eyes, the slight smile that meant they were already thinking about doing whatever she wanted, but Jake just nodded once and said that would be appreciated. "Captain Hawthorne, you can dock at our main airlock. My crew will be waiting to receive you." Connection ended, and Lisa felt a small flutter of surprise. Jake had not reacted the way humans usually did when they saw her, but she pushed the thought away. One human could not resist what had worked on thousands of others. Maya looked concerned as they prepared to board the human ship. "Captain, something feels different about this one." I tried to read his surface thoughts during the communication, but his mind was strangely protected for a human. Lisa waved away her concerns. "Maya, you worry too much. These humans probably have some basic mental shields from their military training, nothing that can stand against it. Elven charm and Zephyrian telepathy, working together, they took a small shuttle to the Prairie Wind and docked at the main airlock. Lisa brought Maya and 2 of her best elven warriors. She expected this to be over within an hour. Once she had the human captain under her influence, she would take his cargo, and probably his ship as well. The airlock opened, and they stepped into the human vessel. The corridors were clean but basic, with metal walls and simple lighting. Lisa was used to the elegant curves and flowing designs of elven ships. This human vessel felt heavy and practical without any beauty. Captain Jake Morrison was waiting for them with 2 members of his crew. Lisa saw a woman with short red hair who looked like she worked with machines, and another woman with dark skin who carried herself like someone used to navigating dangerous places. "Welcome aboard," Jake said, extending his hand in the human greeting. Lisa took it, expecting the usual reaction to her touch, but Jake simply shook her hand once and released it. His gray eyes met hers directly, without the dreamy expression she was used to seeing. "This is my engineer Kate Rivers and my navigator Beth Cross," Jake continued. Both women nodded politely, but Lisa noticed they seemed alert and ready for trouble. This was not the usual reaction of humans. "Meeting elves for the first time. Thank you for allowing us aboard," Lisa said, letting her voice carry more of its magical influence. "I do hope we can help you with your difficulties and perhaps discuss other matters of mutual benefit." Jake led them through the ship toward what appeared to be a meeting room. Lisa noticed that while the Prairie Wind looked simple, it seemed to have more crew than a normal cargo vessel would need. She saw at least a dozen humans moving through the corridors, all of whom looked competent and professional as they walked. Lisa began to use more of her elven abilities. She let her natural grace make every movement look like dancing, and allowed her presence to fill the space around them. Most humans would be completely charmed by now, but Jake continued to act normally. The meeting room had a large table with chairs around it. Jake offered them seats, and his crew brought drinks. Lisa accepted a cup of human coffee, and took the opportunity to lean forward in a way that had never failed to get attention. But Jake was looking at a datapad and discussing cargo manifests with Kate, as if Lisa was just another ship captain. "Morrison," Lisa said, using her full power now, letting her voice become like music and her eyes shine with inner light. "Perhaps we could discuss compensation for our assistance. I am sure we can come to an arrangement that benefits both of our crews." Jake looked up from his datapad, and for the first time Lisa saw something in his eyes that made her pause. It was not desire or confusion, but something that looked almost like amusement. "Of course, Captain Hawthorne," he said. "What did you have in mind?" Lisa felt her patience wearing thin as Jake Morrison continued to resist her charms. She had spent the last hour trying every technique that had worked on countless other species, but the human captain remained completely unaffected by her elven magic. Maya sat beside her, sending worried thoughts through their mental link. "Captain, this human is not normal. His mind has barriers I have never seen before, and he seems to know exactly what we are trying to do." Lisa ignored her lieutenant and leaned back in her chair with a frustrated sigh. She decided to try a different approach, something that would either break his resistance or give her another way to take what she wanted. "Captain Morrison," she said with her most charming smile, "I can see you are a man who appreciates directness. Perhaps we should settle our business arrangements in a more traditional manner." Jake raised one eyebrow and set down his coffee cup. "What did you have in mind, Captain Hawthorne?" Lisa smiled wider, knowing she was about to spring her trap. "I propose we play a game of chance, a traditional elven contest called Void's Edge. The winner takes everything the loser owns. It is an ancient and honorable way to settle disputes between spacers." Maya tensed beside her and sent a sharp mental warning. "Captain, this is dangerous. You have never lost at Void's Edge, but this human is not like the others." Jake stroked his chin thoughtfully and looked at Kate and Beth, who both seemed concerned, but not surprised by the suggestion. "An interesting proposal," he said slowly. "I admit, I am not familiar with this elven game. Could you explain the rules?" Lisa felt a surge of confidence. The fact that Jake was even considering the game meant her trap was working. Every species in the galaxy had heard of Void's Edge, and most were too afraid to play against an elf. She had been perfecting her strategy for over 2 centuries, and had never lost. "The game is simple," she explained. "We each get 5 crystal dice that show different symbols. The goal is to create patterns that represent different space phenomena, like stars, planets, and void storms. The better your pattern, the higher your score. We play 7 rounds, and whoever has the highest total score wins everything." Jake nodded slowly. "Sounds fascinating, but I would need to understand the scoring system better, since I am just a primitive human. Could we perhaps modify the rules slightly so I can follow along?" Lisa almost laughed out loud. This was exactly what she had hoped for. Most species tried to change the rules of Void's Edge to give themselves an advantage, but they never understood that the game had been designed by elven mathematicians over thousands of years. Every possible variation had been accounted for, and every modification actually made it easier for someone who knew the true strategy to win. "Of course," she said graciously. "What modifications would you like?" Jake pulled out a datapad and started making notes. "Perhaps we could use a simpler scoring system instead of the traditional elven calculations. Could we use basic mathematical additions and multiplications? I know it takes away from the elegance of your game, but it would help me understand what is happening." Lisa agreed immediately. This was even better than she had hoped. Jake was essentially asking her to use a scoring system that would make her victory even more certain. The traditional elven scoring used complex patterns that could confuse opponents, but simple mathematics would make it easier for her to calculate her wins also. Jake continued, "Could we record the game for my crew? I want them to see how these things are done properly in elven society." Maya sent another worried message. "Captain, I do not like this. Something feels wrong about his requests." Lisa waved her lieutenant to silence. "Of course, Captain Morrison. We elves believe in honor and transparency. Maya, please prepare the recording equipment." As they set up the game, Lisa felt more confident than she had in decades. Jake had essentially asked her to play Void's Edge with training rules that made it impossible for him to win. She pulled out her personal set of crystal dice that had been blessed by elven priests and were perfectly balanced for the game. Jake produced a simple set of metal dice that looked like something from a basic gaming kit, but Lisa did not care about his equipment. When you knew the mathematics of Void's Edge as well as she did, the dice were just tools. The first round began, and Lisa threw her dice with practiced ease. She got a pattern called Stellar Cascade that was worth 43 points in the modified scoring system. Jake rolled his simple metal dice and got what looked like a random collection of symbols worth only 28 points. As the game continued, Lisa found herself enjoying Jake's confusion. He would stare at his dice for long minutes, trying to understand the patterns while she calculated her next moves effortlessly. By the fourth round, she was ahead by over 60 points, and Jake seemed to be getting more frustrated. Maya kept sending worried thoughts, but Lisa blocked them out. She was too close to victory to let her lieutenant's paranoia distract her. Jake Morrison was about to learn what happened when someone tried to resist elven superiority. Fifth round arrived, and Lisa threw another excellent combination. But when Jake rolled his dice, something changed in his expression. The confusion disappeared and was replaced by what looked almost like satisfaction. He marked down his score, and suddenly, the gap between them was much smaller. "Captain Hawthorne," Jake said as he prepared for the sixth round, "I have to admit, your game is more complex than I first thought. The patterns seem to follow mathematical sequences that build on each other." Lisa felt a small chill of worry but pushed it aside. No human could understand Void's Edge well enough to threaten her. She was still ahead, and only needed one more good round to secure her victory. The sixth round saw Jake throw a combination that Lisa had never seen before. His simple metal dice showed symbols that, according to the modified scoring rules, created something called a void spiral worth 75 points. Lisa stared at the dice, trying to figure out how he had managed it. The seventh and final round arrived with Lisa ahead by only 8 points. She needed a good throw to guarantee her win, and Jake would need something nearly impossible to beat her. She rolled her blessed crystal dice and got a solid 56 points, bringing her total to 412. Jake picked up his metal dice and paused, looking directly at Lisa with those steady gray eyes. "Now, Captain Hawthorne, I hope you will honor the terms of our agreement, regardless of the outcome." Lisa laughed. "Of course, Captain Morrison. Elven honor is absolute." Jake threw his dice, and Lisa watched in growing horror as the symbols lined up in a pattern she had never seen, but that, according to the modified rules Jake had insisted on, was worth exactly 89 points. His final total was 421 points. Maya gasped, and Lisa felt the world spinning around her. In over 2 centuries of playing Void's Edge, she had never Lost, never even come close to losing, but somehow this primitive human had beaten her at her own game. Captain Hawthorne, Jake said in a calm voice that now sounded much more dangerous than it had before. According to the sacred laws of Void's Edge, everything you own now belongs to me. That includes your ship, your crew, and according to traditional elven honor codes, your own freedom. Lisa stared at the dice, unable to believe what had just happened. The recording equipment Maya had set up had captured every moment of the game, and there was no way to deny what had occurred. Jake stood up and looked at her with an expression that was no longer confused or amused, but completely in control. Welcome to my crew, Captain Hawthorne. I think we are going to work very well together. Lisa sat in stunned silence as the reality of her situation crashed down around her. She had just lost everything in a single game to a human she had thought was nothing more than a simple cargo hauler. The sacred laws of Void's Edge were absolute, and breaking them would make her an outcast from all elven society. Maya was the first to recover from the shock. She stood up quickly, her blue skin flashing with angry silver patterns, and her purple eyes blazing with fury. This is impossible, she declared. No human could beat an elf at Void's Edge. You must have cheated somehow. Jake remained calm and collected as he gathered up the dice. I can assure you, Lieutenant Stardust, that everything was recorded. Your captain suggested the modifications to the rules and agreed to all the terms. The game was played fairly, according to the conditions, she said. Maya turned to Lisa, her mental voice screaming with panic. Captain, we cannot accept this. We have weapons and warriors. The humans are outnumbered. We can take back what is ours by force. But Lisa knew that path would destroy her completely. If word got out that she had broken a sacred oath after losing at Void's Edge, no elven ship would ever accept her as crew. No elven port would give her shelter. She would become a wanderer, with no home and no honor. The recording, Jake, she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. What will you do with it? Jake looked at her with those steady gray eyes. I will keep it safe, Captain Hawthorne. Your crew needs to know that the game was fair and that you lost with honor, but I have no intention of broadcasting your defeat across the galaxy, unless you give me reason to. Kate and Beth had been watching the entire scene with expressions that showed they were not surprised by what had happened. Lisa realized that this had all been planned from the beginning. The distress signal, the modifications to the game rules, even Jake's apparent confusion, had all been part of an elaborate trap. You knew who I was from the start, Lisa said. It was not a question. Jake nodded. Your ship has been raiding cargo vessels in this sector for months. Captain Hawthorne, I have been tracking your movements and waiting for the right opportunity. Your reputation for using Void's Edge to steal ships and cargo is well known among the independent traders. Lisa felt a cold anger building inside her, but she also felt something else that surprised her, a grudging respect for the human who had outmaneuvered her so completely. Jake had done something that no one had managed in over 2 centuries. He had beaten her at her own game, using her own arrogance against her. So, what happens now? She asked. Jake walked to the window that showed the 2 ships floating in space. The Star Whisper looked sleek and deadly next to the bulky Prairie Wind, but now it belonged to him. You will serve as my first officer, Captain Hawthorne. Your knowledge and experience are valuable assets, and I would be foolish to waste them. Lisa laughed bitterly. You want me to serve under you, a human? Yes, Jake said simply. Because despite what you may think about humans, we judge people by their abilities, not their species. Your tactical knowledge could save lives, and your understanding of elven technology will be useful in the work we do. What work? Lisa asked. Jake turned back to her. We protect the smaller species from predators like you used to be, Captain Hawthorne. Independent traders, miners, colonists. They deserve to travel space without fear of being robbed by someone who thinks they are superior. Maya stepped forward, her anger still blazing. Captain, you cannot seriously consider this. We have served together for 50 years. We have conquered ships across a dozen sectors. This human has no right to command us. Jake looked at Maya with the same calm expression. Lieutenant Stardust, you and the rest of the crew have the same choice. Your captain does serve honorably under new management, or be dropped off at the nearest space station. With nothing but the clothes on your back. Smaya sent a desperate mental message to Lisa. Captain, we could contact the Elven fleet. They would never allow a human to hold one of our ships. Lisa closed her eyes and felt the weight of her decision. The Elven fleet would indeed respond if she called them, but they would also learn about her defeat at Void's Edge, and her dishonor would spread throughout Elven space. She would be marked as a failure, who lost to a primitive human. No, Maya, she said quietly. We will honor the outcome of the game. I gave my word, and that still means something. The blue alien stared at her in shock. Captain, you cannot be serious. I am completely serious, Lisa said, standing up and facing Jake Morrison. Jake had won fairly even. If she did not understand how he had done it, running away or breaking her oath would only make things worse. Over the next few hours, Lisa watched as Jake took command of both ships. With smooth efficiency, he moved crew members between the vessels, balancing skills and ensuring that both ships could operate effectively. His orders were clear and reasonable, and Lisa found herself surprised by how well he understood the technical aspects of both human and Elven technology. Jake assigned quarters for Lisa and Maya aboard the Star Whisper, but made it clear that he would be spending time on both ships. Lisa expected him to act like a conqueror, taking the best quarters and demanding special treatment. Instead, he took a simple cabin and treated both crews with the same respect he showed his original team. As the day wore on, Lisa began to notice things about Jake's leadership that confused her. He did not rule through fear or intimidation like most ship captains she knew. Instead, he listened to suggestions from crew members and made decisions based on logic and practicality. When one of her Elven warriors questioned an order, Jake did not punish him. Instead, he explained his reasoning and asked for better alternatives. Lisa had always commanded through a combination of fear, respect, and the natural authority that elves held over other species. That evening, Jake called a meeting with all the senior officers from both ships. Lisa sat at the table feeling strange to be included in discussions about her own vessel. Jake laid out his plans for the combined crews and asked for input from everyone, including her. Your experience rating ships will be useful, Captain Hawthorne, he said. We need to understand how pirates think and operate in order to protect potential victims from them. Lisa found herself drawn into the conversation, despite her anger and humiliation. Jake's questions were intelligent, and his understanding of space tactics was much deeper than she had expected. He was not the simple cargo hauler she had thought him to be. The meeting ended, Jake stood and looked around the table. We have work to do, people. There are traders and colonists in this sector who need protection, and we are going to provide it. Lisa remained behind as the others left. Jake, she said, when they were alone, why are you doing this? You could have taken my ship and sold it. You could have turned me over to the authorities for piracy. Why keep me as your first officer? Jake looked at her thoughtfully. Because, Captain Hawthorne, you have spent 2 centuries learning how to be dangerous. Now I want to see if you can learn how to be useful instead. 3 weeks had passed since Jake had won the Star Whisper, and Lisa found herself reluctantly adapting to her new role as first officer. She had expected to hate every moment of serving under a human, but Jake's leadership style was unlike anything she had experienced in her long life. Instead of the harsh commands and rigid hierarchy she was used to, Jake led through competence and fairness. He listened to suggestions from crew members, regardless of their species, and made decisions based on what was best for everyone under his command. Lisa watched from the bridge as Jake coordinated both ships through a complex asteroid field. They were responding to a distress call from a small mining colony that had been attacked by raiders. Jake had taken the time to study her tactical reports about pirate behavior, and was using her knowledge to predict where the attackers might strike next. Maya stood at the communications station, still resentful of their situation but beginning to show grudging respect for Jake's abilities. Her telepathic talents had proven useful in coordinating between the 2 ships, and Jake made sure to acknowledge her contributions. Captain, we are receiving a transmission from the mining colony, the blue alien reported they say. The raiders left 2 hours ago, but took most of their equipment and several colonists. As slaves, Jake nodded grimly. Can you get a telepathic read on any of the colonists, Maya? Their emotional state might tell us which direction. The raiders went. Maya concentrated for a moment, her skin patterns glowing silver. I can sense fear and anger from the northwest section of the asteroid belt. The emotions are moving away from us at high speed. Excellent, Jake said. Set course to intercept. Lisa, I need your assessment of likely raider tactics in this situation. Lisa found herself analyzing the tactical situation with professional interest. The raiders would want to get their stolen goods to a safe location quickly, but they would also want to avoid any pursuit. They would probably use the asteroids as cover while they made their way to a jump point. They will stay in the asteroid field until they reach the outer edge, she said, then make a jump to a system where they can sell the mining equipment and the slaves. Jake nodded. The same thing you would have done. Lisa felt a stab of shame at the comparison, but Jake's tone was matter-of-fact rather than accusatory. Yes, she admitted. The same thing I would have done as they pursued the raiders. Lisa began to understand more about Jake's background. His tactical knowledge was too advanced for a simple cargo hauler, and his ship carried equipment that was far more sophisticated than it appeared. Kate was working on upgrading the weapon systems of both ships, using technology that Lisa had never seen before. The human engineers seemed to have access to military-grade equipment and the knowledge to install it properly. During a brief break in the pursuit, Lisa approached Jake. In his quarters, she found him studying star charts and ship specifications with the intensity of someone preparing for war. You are not really a cargo hauler, are you? She said. Jake looked up from his work and gestured for her to sit down. I used to be a military strategist for the Colonial Defense Force, he said. We were responsible for protecting human colonies from raiders and hostile aliens. Lisa felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together. That explains your knowledge of tactics and your access to advanced equipment. What made you leave the military? Jake's expression grew distant. There was a war with a species called the Devourers. They attacked human colonies and enslaved or killed everyone they found. I spent 3 years developing strategies to fight them, and we eventually won. But Lisa prompted, sensing there was more to the story. But the cost was too high, Jake said quietly. We had to make choices about which colonies to save and which ones to abandon. I got tired of deciding who lived and who died, so I resigned my commission and became an independent trader. Lisa understood now why Jake was so determined to protect smaller species from predators. He had seen what happened when the strong preyed on the weak and had decided to do something about it. The pursuit of the raiders continued for another day before they finally caught up with them. Jake's strategy was brilliant, using the asteroid field to mask their approach, while Lisa provided intelligence about likely raider responses. The battle was quick and decisive. The raiders were expecting to fight simple miners or colonial defense forces, not two well-armed ships with experienced crews. Jake coordinated the attack with precision, while Lisa used her knowledge of pirate tactics to anticipate their moves. When it was over, they had rescued all the colonists and captured most of the stolen equipment. The raiders who survived were turned over to the colonial authorities, while the rescued slaves were returned to their families. During the aftermath, Lisa found herself working alongside Maya to help coordinate medical aid for the rescued colonists. Several of them were injured and needed immediate attention. One of the colonists, a young human woman named Jenny, approached Lisa as she helped distribute supplies. Thank you, she said with tears in her eyes. I never thought anyone would come for us. Lisa felt an unfamiliar emotion as she looked at the grateful colonist. For over 2 centuries, she had been the one causing this kind of fear and suffering. Now she was helping to prevent it, and the feeling was strangely satisfying. Maya noticed her captain's reaction and sent a private thought. Captain, you seem different since we started working with the humans. I am beginning to understand something, Lisa replied mentally. Jake Morrison leads through strength, but not the kind of strength I thought was important. He makes people want to follow him, instead of forcing them to obey. That evening Jake called another meeting with the senior staff to discuss their next mission. Lisa listened as he outlined plans to patrol trade routes and provide security for merchant vessels. Your knowledge of how pirates operate has been invaluable, Captain Hawthorne, he said, but I want to know if you are committed to this work or if you are just going through the motions until you can escape. Lisa considered the question carefully. A month ago, she would have said she was looking for any opportunity to regain her freedom and return to her old life, but something had changed in her perspective. Have spent 2 centuries taking what I wanted from people who could not defend themselves, she said slowly. I told myself it was my right because elves were superior to other species, but watching you work with this crew, I realized that real superiority comes from what you give, not what you take. Jake nodded. That is a good start, Captain Hawthorne, but understanding something intellectually and feeling it emotionally are different things. Are you ready to risk your life to protect people you have never met? Lisa thought about Jenny and the other colonists they had rescued. She remembered the fear in their eyes and the gratitude they showed when they were saved. For the first time in her long life, she felt like she had done something truly worthwhile as she said, I am ready. Maya looked at her captain with surprise and something that might have been pride. Captain, are you sure about this? We could still find a way to reclaim the Star Whisper and return to our old life. Lisa shook her head. No, Maya. Our old life was built on causing the same kind of suffering we just helped prevent. I would rather serve under Jake Morrison with honor than command my own ship through fear. Jake smiled, the first genuine smile she had seen from him since their first meeting. Welcome to the crew, Captain Hawthorne. I think you are going to like the work we do. 2 months had passed since Lisa joined Jake's crew, and she had begun to find purpose in their mission of protecting smaller species from predators like she used to be. The work was dangerous but satisfying in ways she had never experienced during her centuries of piracy. Everything changed when their sensors detected something that made even veteran spacers nervous. A massive void drake was approaching the Kepler mining colony, and the creature was big enough to destroy both their ships and everyone on the planet. Lisa stood on the bridge of the Star Whisper, watching the scanner readings with growing concern. Void drakes were ancient space creatures that fed on energy and metal. They were nearly impossible to kill and could swallow entire ships without slowing down. Jake's voice came over the communication system from the Prairie Wind. All crew members, this is your captain. We have a code black situation. A void drake is heading directly for the Kepler colony and will arrive in 6 hours. Maya looked up from her station, her blue skin pale with fear. Captain, those colonists have no way to evacuate in time. There are over 10,000 people on that planet. Lisa felt her heart racing as she calculated the tactical situation. A void drake was not like fighting pirates or raiders. It was a force of nature that destroyed everything in its path. Most spacers simply ran when they detected one. Jake continued his announcement. I know what you are all thinking. These creatures are supposed to be impossible to fight, but we have something that no one has ever tried before. We have elven tactical knowledge, Zephyrian telepathic abilities, and human strategic thinking working together. Lisa realized what Jake was proposing and felt a chill of terror mixed with admiration. He wanted to actually fight the void drake instead of running away. It was either the bravest or most foolish thing she had ever heard. Captain Morrison, Lisa said, over the communication channel. This is suicide. Void drakes have destroyed entire fleets. No one has ever successfully killed one. Jake's response was calm, but determined. Captain Hawthorne, I need you to tell me everything you know about void drake behavior, how they hunt, what attracts them, and what might drive them away. I closed her eyes and tried to remember everything she had learned about the creatures during her long career. Void drakes hunt by sensing energy signatures. She said they are drawn to large concentrations of metal and electronic activity. The colony's mining operations would attract it like a beacon. Maya added her own knowledge. Captain, they are also sensitive to strong telepathic signals. My people have legends about Zephyrian priests who could communicate with them, but I have never tried anything like that. Jake was quiet for a moment, then spoke with growing excitement. That gives me an idea, Lisa. I need you to work with Kate and Beth to modify our weapons systems, Maya. I need you to see if you can establish some kind of mental contact with the creature over the next 4 hours. Both crews worked frantically to prepare for a battle that seemed impossible to win. Lisa found herself coordinating with Kate to combine elven energy weapons with human engineering, while Maya attempted to reach out telepathically to the approaching monster. The void, Drake, was enormous when it finally appeared on their visual screens. It looked like a cross between a dragon and a spaceship, with crystalline scales that reflected starlight and wings that seemed to bend space itself. Its eyes glowed with ancient intelligence and hunger. Maya gasped as she made mental contact. Captain, I can sense its thoughts. It is incredibly old and very hungry. The mining operations have been disturbing its territory for months, and now it wants to destroy the source of the annoyance. Can you communicate with it? Jake asked. Maya concentrated harder, her skin patterns blazing silver. It does not think like we do, Captain. Its mind is vast and alien, but I think I can get its attention. Lisa watched in amazement as Maya began a complex telepathic conversation with the void Drake. The creature slowed its approach and seemed to be listening to something only the Zephyrian could hear. Jake coordinated the battle plan with precision, using Lisa's knowledge of the creature's anatomy and Kate's weapons modifications. They could not kill something that large, but maybe they could hurt it enough to drive it away from the colony. The first phase of the battle went better than anyone expected. The combined firepower of both ships managed to damage one of the void Drake's wings, and the creature roared with anger that could be heard across space, but the Drake fought back with devastating power. Its breath weapon tore through space and nearly destroyed the prairie wind. Kate managed to keep the engines running, but the ship was badly damaged. Lisa made a split-second decision that surprised even herself. She ordered her elven crew to position the Star Whisper between the Drake and the colony, putting her own ship at maximum risk to protect the humans on the planet below. The gesture was not lost on Jake or the human colonists. Captain Hawthorne, that was incredibly brave, he said. Over the communication system, Maya suddenly cried out in pain and triumph. Captain, the Drake is responding to my telepathic contact. It recognizes that we are trying to protect others instead of just fighting for ourselves. Lisa felt something shift. In the battle, the void Drake's attacks became less focused on destroying them, and more like testing their resolve. It was as if the ancient creature was trying to understand why they were willing to risk everything for strangers. The final phase of the battle came when the Drake made a direct attack on the colony. Lisa realized that words and weapons would not be enough. Someone had to make the ultimate sacrifice to prove their commitment to protecting others. Without hesitation, Lisa ordered the Star Whisper to ram the void Drake's head, knowing it would probably destroy her ship, but might save the colony. The elven vessel accelerated toward the massive creature while her crew braced for impact. The last moment the Drake stopped its attack, Maya's telepathic connection had finally gotten through to its ancient mind. The creature understood that these beings were willing to die to protect others, and that kind of selflessness was something it had not encountered in many centuries. Void Drake slowly turned away from the colony and disappeared into deep space, leaving behind only the memory of its terrible beauty and ancient wisdom. Lisa found herself shaking as the adrenaline of battle faded. She had been willing to sacrifice everything, including her own life and the lives of her crew, to save people she barely knew. It was the opposite of everything she had believed for 2 centuries. Jake's voice came over the communication system, filled with genuine respect and gratitude. Captain Hawthorne, what you did today showed more courage than I have ever seen. You proved that real strength comes from protecting others, not from taking what you want. Maya looked at her captain with new understanding. Captain, you have changed completely from the person who boarded the Prairie Wind months ago. You risked everything for strangers. Lisa smiled as she realized the truth of Maya's words. I did not just lose my ship to Jake Morrison, she said. I lost my old way of thinking and gained something much more valuable. Later that evening, as both crews worked together to repair the damage from the battle, Jake approached Lisa with an offer. Captain Hawthorne, you have more than proven yourself. I am prepared to return ownership of the Star Whisper to you, if you want to leave and resume your old life. Lisa looked around at the mixed crew of humans, elves, and Zephyrians, working together with mutual respect and common purpose. She thought about the grateful messages they had received from the colonists and the satisfaction she felt from protecting instead of preying on others. Thank you, Jake, she said. But I would rather stay here as your first officer. The Star Whisper may have been my ship once, but this crew has become my family. Jake smiled and extended his hand. Welcome home, Captain Hawthornus. Lisa shook his hand. She realized that losing everything to Jake Morrison had been the best thing that ever happened to her. She had discovered that true ownership came not from taking what others had, but from earning what they freely gave. The Star Whisper and Prairie Wind flew together toward their next mission, carrying a crew united not by force or fear, but by shared purpose and mutual respect. Lisa had, finally, learned the difference between commanding through power and leading through service.